I often get the question, how do I deal with a sponsor in a sponsored coaching engagement? I'd like to share my ideas in today's video. You are on the verge of having your first sponsored coaching engagement. Wonderful. There are some good ways to work with the sponsor to ensure that the coaching engagement goes well, and you don't feel the pressure to breach the confidentiality agreement that you have with the client. How do you navigate that when you have a sponsor who wants to be part of the process? Well, here's what I recommend in the process that I usually follow. Now, I have a coaching agreement, and in the agreement, I outline what are the roles and responsibilities of the coach and the coachee. What I don't have is a section for the sponsor, but it's something that I'm considering so that it's clear up front in writing how the sponsor can be a part of the process. I generally handle that orally, but I'm thinking of updating my process going forward if I run into any trouble. I generally don't, but it's something that you might think about. Here's what I do. I always have a conversation with the sponsor up front about how they can participate in the process. And usually I cover that through check-ins and measurement. Let's start with check-ins. Check-ins are those three-way meetings that we have with the sponsor and the coachee to ensure that the sponsor is hearing what the coachee is working on and the coachee is able to share what are their goals for the engagement. The check-in meeting is very important because the sponsor, in some cases, is the manager or the HR leader. Either way, they can be invited to that meeting to understand what it is that the coachee is going to work on. And this satisfies the sponsor in one key way. They want to know that what you're working on with the coachee will not just benefit them, but will also benefit the greater organization, or at least the team that they work with. And that's almost always the case, but they love hearing it. And they like being invited to hear about what you'll be working on with the client and share feedback, input, and consider how they might support the client to be successful. That's important for the client to hear, that the sponsor is on board with supporting their success. So it works all the way around. In these check-in meetings, I do a little bit of talking. The client does most of the talking. They're the one that shares, so there's no breach of confidentiality, right? I'm not sharing what we've talked about. You are, meaning you, the client, with the sponsor. And then the coaching goes on and we get to the midway point. Oftentimes we'll have a check-in again because the sponsor wants to know, how's the coaching going? So then we talk about that. And the client will share a story or two, some examples of how they're making changes, and the sponsor can recognize the effort and also provide their own feedback about what they've seen and what the client might want to continue to work on. This is a good meeting and important for the coach and the client, and of course for the sponsor. Then we get towards the end of the engagement and we may have one final check-in to affirm that we have reached our destination in the coaching engagement and found success. And of course, once again, have the sponsor affirm that they're seeing the progress that's been made. There are times where we may need to renew the engagement because we haven't fully reached the goals that we had set for ourselves. And that's okay. That happens sometimes. A 6-month engagement might become a 12-month engagement or a 9-month engagement. And that's fine. And that's why that meeting is also important, to talk about the need for that and to have the sponsor agree. So that's part one, right? Part two is the measurement. Sponsors want to see that coaching that they're sponsoring is effective, and measurement helps to make that a reality. A few recommendations there. One would be a before and after 360 survey that can be held online in an anonymous fashion, or it can be interviews that the coach has with people that are stakeholders around the client to measure the progress that's been made through those conversations before and after. You could also use team engagement surveys that can show progress and results, or you can also have behavioral change that's measured by a series of people that the coachee talks to and gets actual ratings each month in that behavioral change process, and that would also be a measurement. And then, of course, the sponsor's feedback about the change that they've seen. So ensure that you have the check-in meetings and measurement vehicles in place, and chances are you'll have a very happy sponsor who doesn't feel like they need to know what you're talking about with the client, and the client will be happy too to have their support. I hope these ideas help you. If you have further questions, please post them in the comments below, or email me at michael@bayareaexecutivecoach.com. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do so and share it with other people who could be helped by this channel and its content. And if you'd like to learn more about my executive coach training and certification programs, please visit the dedicated website, bayareaexecutivecoachtraining.com. Thank you very much.